season. Not the greatest effort, not certainly a pretty effort, but I'll take it. It is a Ravens victory over the Buffalo Bills. It was a 13-7 victory. Not a lot of scoring going on. And, I guess from the Ravens' perspective, any win is a good win to start the season and at least get out of the game without a lot of injuries, a lot of weirdness. Luke Jones joins us here live from downtown where the Purple celebration begins for a week and now off to Cleveland and Jacksonville. But, Luke, this is what the doctor ordered for this franchise, a 1-0 start and maybe a benefactor of playing a lesser team in week one, but I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Yeah, this kind of had an old school kind of feel to it for the Ravens. I mean, a defensive effort that was really, really impressive, even as you pointed out, when this Buffalo team wasn't exactly stellar on Sunday. But you hold a team, an NFL offense to 160 yards and just to completely shut them out in the second half. Their only touchdown came on kind of, the result of that kind of busted play where Albert McClellan Mrs. Tyrod Taylor would have had a sack, would have gotten off the field, and instead they get a big completion to Clay. But beyond that, I mean, this was a really impressive effort by the defense. The offense, kind of an old-school Ravens feel to it. They got that one explosive play, as Brian Billick used to like to call it back in the day. Not a whole lot going in the second half. They moved the ball fairly well in the first half, didn't really take advantage the way they wanted to, and I know Joe Flacco talked about that after the game. But, hey, you'll take a win. First time they've won an opener since 2012. You kind of begin to put the memory of last year behind you. You get off to a 1-0 start. As you pointed out, 2 road games coming up. Won't be easy. Rarely is easy playing on the road in the NFL, but you'll take it. It's good enough. The Ravens will be happy with it, while also acknowledging they still have a lot of work to do.
All right, so, I don't even know really where to begin with this thing because I feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone here. And first off, there's a lot of praise to be given, and I guess there's a lot of criticism. Let's start with the praise, okay? Let's start with Shareece Wright and a different kind of game for him. I think for the whole secondary, for Weddle, for Webb, a really nice back-end game. But more than that, Shareece Wright really making us say, hey, that guy changed numbers. Who the hell's that guy, right?
Yeah, there was lots of jersey swapping this week, so it was important to have your scorecard or your flip chart in front of you.
What was the flip chart? Because the thing that they handed out at the stadium had all the wrong numbers in it. I know this firsthand.
Yeah, that would make sense. But, Shareece Wright, I mean, he didn't exactly have a great summer. I mean, guys like me were writing and talking about the fact that he hadn't played all that well in preseason action, hadn't looked all that great in practices. Even at one point, I know acknowledged the media that he wasn't playing with a whole lot of confidence. So you're kind of thinking, well, this is supposed to be a starting corner. This is a guy that they gave not a whole lot of money to in the offseason, but they gave him some money to stay and be a starting corner opposite Jimmy Smith. But I think a couple layers to this. One, Jimmy Smith shadowed Sammy Watkins, and I thought did a really good job. I mean, this is a guy that, when healthy, is, a kind of receiver who could be a top 5 kind of talent in this league. He's had some injuries, but Jimmy Smith did a nice job with him. And when you're that other corner, when you have the number one corner mirroring or shadowing a receiver all around the field, that other corner knows that he's not going to be going up against the number one receiver. I mean, you look at some of the other targets here. Woods is okay. Buffalo doesn't really have a whole lot as far as receivers beyond Watkins that really scare you. So if you're Shareece Wright, you need to clean up and make plays. Certainly you can't allow anything in coverage or don't want to allow any big plays in coverage. And he did a fantastic job in run support. Recognized run really well, had good awareness, 3 different tackles for loss. Had the a couple big ones early, had the one on Taylor a little bit later on. And he just did a really impressive job there. And the overall theme for the defense, and I know some people will look at the pass rush, and a lot of people were talking about it during the game. The pass rush wasn't overly impressive. I think part of that was, to be totally honest, I think part of that might have been by design because Tyrod Taylor's the kind of guy you want to keep in the pocket. You don't want him escaping.
There were a couple times there was over pursuit. I mean, late in the game, Suggs wants to get there. Zadarius Smith, they want to get there, but he's the wrong quarterback to get there because when you get there, he's going over there, right? I mean, and that's not always the case in this league. I mean, there was a point 10, 15 years ago where there were a lot of Tyrod Taylors running around, and that with the Michael Vick era, that's what they wanted. Between Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick during that decade, people wanted a running quarterback. You don't have many of them them now because they get hurt. We sort of know that going in, and I don't know that the Ravens are going to have a game plan like this much. Now, RG3 is going to provide a sort of a similar tactic, but it's one thing you don't worry about with Andy Dalton or Ben Roethlisberger. Just getting him to the ground is enough. But with Tyrod, getting to him doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get him to the ground. He was incredibly slippery at various points in the game.
He was, but at the same time, they didn't let him get loose, though. That's the big key. I mean, it's one thing he's going to move around. He's going to buy himself some time. Clearly wasn't able to make a lot of plays with his arm, and I think a lot of Ravens fans are, kind of looking at what he did last year and seeing what he did on Sunday and kind of shrugging their shoulders about it. But I think that the Ravens got to him some. They blitzed some, and certainly a couple times they could have had him, and they weren't able to do it. But, my overall observation about this Ravens defense that is encouraging, because I've been someone that's been beating the drum the last couple of years about this team not having a whole lot of speed. I thought they played fast. I thought they played confident. I thought they played with a swagger. Again, is Buffalo going to be an elite offense this year? Probably not. But at the same time, you can only play the opponent that you're dealt on week one, and from that standpoint, you have to be really encouraged by what you saw from this Ravens defense that, oh, by the way, didn't have Elvis Dumervil on Sunday. So I think that was good to see. Again, the pass rush wasn't overwhelming, but I think they got there enough. They did enough to make Taylor uncomfortable, and they covered really well on the back end. So, this was the number one rushing attack a year ago, and the Ravens did a really nice job, held them to 2.7 yards per carry. I mean, Shady McCoy had, a 16-yard run. He got loose a couple times, but overall there wasn't a ton of room for him. And, again, they did a nice job with not allowing Tyrod Taylor to really take off and make big plays with his legs. That's a guy who ran for a ton of yardage last year at the quarterback position. So overall, I think the theme, and we'll get to the offense, I'm sure, here in the next couple minutes, but just the speed that I saw on this Ravens team on Sunday, improved speed, playing faster, that was a good sign. And
that's what we heard during training camp, that this was faster, right? And I talked to Brandon Williams about it after the game. You can hear it in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. I think they feel it. I think the front seven feels that there's more speed there than there has been. Maybe Super Bowl year and a few years before that when Suggs was running like a gazelle and Nada was really in his prime and Ray could still run a little bit. And they always had guys on the back end like Ed Reed that could run at that point. We haven't seen that in a couple of years here, and it's good. It's a good sign in week one that a lot of these veteran guys are still, Suggs was running around. Weddle was running around. Some of the veteran guys, Webb, the 30 club, as we would say, they fit in nicely and ran around pretty well.
Yeah, and that'll be a big question with some of those older guys. How do they hold up over 16 games? That's always going to be a question. That's one reason why I've said that you need to start seeing some younger talent on this team step forward on both sides of the ball. But it wasn't even just that they just had faster players. They played faster too, and I think they had a real confidence in what they were doing on the defensive side of the ball. So it was a good start, and certainly you like what you saw from the cornerback position. Again, Sammy Watkins, 4 catches, 43 yards. You got to give Jimmy Smith overall the thumbs up there. And Sharice Wright, just 11 tackles, 3 of them for losses. Typically when you see a corner making 11 tackles, that's usually when the game's going the other way, where you can't stop the other team moving.
Yeah, well, Suggs said that after the game. He's like, when's the last time we had a cornerback with 10 tackles here? It was a unique game.
But it was a good performance, though. That's the thing. A lot of times 11, 12 tackles for a corner, that means, he's being picked on in the secondary and they're throwing the ball all over the place. But that was not the case. Just really nice to see that from the defense. A nice performance to build on. And, for the many, including myself, who were skeptical of the fact that, okay, the defense did play better down the stretch last year overall, but, wasn't a murderer's row of opponents that they played well against. And clearly they were out of it. We knew they weren't playing for anything at that point. So to see that, and then to see them, come out and play the way they did on Sunday, you keep in mind it's one game. It's week one. You move on to the next opponent. Still plenty of things they need to correct on both sides of the ball, but it's something to be encouraged by, I think.
He is Luke Jones. I am Nestor. Appreciate everybody tuning in out on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel where we stream all of our video. And, of course, anything you miss here, you can find out in the Buy Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's free and powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And as Luke pointed out earlier in the day on Saturday, some scratches. You get all the scratches, all of the breaking news on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I want to stay on the defensive side here, Luke Jones. Orr and McClellan and some of the other guys. I went up to McClellan after the game. I said, dude, it feels like you've been here a decade, and I saw more of you running around the field. It really has been a growth part of the defense that some of these guys have beaten out the Correas for playing time, that some of the veteran guys that, I don't want to say they were afterthoughts, but clearly the Ravens went into the draft trying to replace some of these guys. There are some veteran guys that have Lawrence Guy, a bunch of these sort of placement guys that play some downs in various packages, that those guys all kind of stepped up. They have a nice rotation going on in the defense right now, and it is deeper than just 7 guys in the front 7.
Yeah, I mean, you need that. I mean, you can't. You're never going to be able to just have 6 or 7 guys that you're counting on and think you're going to make it through the season playing at a high level. To think you're going to make it through the season, period. But I mean, Albert McClellan. People will kind of forget this, but he played a lot defensively the first time that Suggs came back from the Achilles in 2012. Remember, he was on the PUP list. He played extensively, and even after Suggs came back, he's a guy that can set the edge. Clearly, everyone's going to point to the whiff on Tyrod Taylor, and that's a play he needs to make. There's no doubt about it because he had him wrapped up. It's not as though he completely just couldn't chase down Tyrod Taylor. But overall, he's a guy who sets the edge pretty well. He's someone that they identified as saying, look, we're not going to spend big money to keep Courtney Upshaw because we all know that Upshaw wasn't much of a pass rusher here in Baltimore. So they thought he was a guy that could play some early down situations, play in the base defense. Of course, Dumerville's the guy that they'll envision coming on the field, replacing him in passing situations. But you have him. You have Zadarius Smith, who played quite a bit. Matt Judon was on the field. They've got quite a few guys that are in the mix there. You mentioned Zach Orr, a guy that started replacing Darryl Smith in the nickel package last year. And one of the reasons they decided they were going to let go of Darryl Smith, they wanted to get a little bit faster there. Or plays with energy. And is he going to be a Pro Bowl kind of player? Probably not. But saw him do some nice things. So I mean, it's you mentioned it. You got some veteran guys who've been here a couple years, waiting for their opportunity. But you think back, Jameel McLean didn't play a ton immediately. Bart Scott didn't play a ton defensively his first year or two. Some of those guys, they cut their teeth, so to speak, on special teams, and then they get some opportunities. And then you're hoping as the year goes on, you'll see more from the likes of Kamale Correa. Some of these, you'll see more from Matt Judon. That's what they need. It's great to count on veterans. It's great to have depth guys, but at some point in time, knowing where this team and where this roster sits, you're going to need some of these younger players. You're going to need some of these draft picks from the last year or two to really kind of pop, so to speak. But in the meantime, as long as they're still contributing and you have veteran players that are still playing at a high enough level, then you got something defensively. So it was definitely interesting to see some of those looks, and certainly impressive to think how this Ravens defense played, understanding that they didn't have Elvis Dumerville, who has been their guy as far as the pass rush the last 3 years. With apologies to Terrell Suggs, we know what Dumerville has been able to do over the last few years. So get him back and amp up that pass rush a little bit more, and then this defense looks even more interesting than it did on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know where the Buffalo O-line is going to be through all of this. I mean, the whole team was maligned by most of the Buffalo people last week here on WNST, but the O-line didn't seem to be getting the kind of penetration. Certainly in the first half, they weren't running the ball. 2 yards of offense in the first quarter or whatever it was. A little better in the second half, but I really felt like the front 7 of the Ravens, not just the speed, but I felt like they're going to be tough to run against for a lot of teams. And I think Shady McCoy, certainly no slouch and certainly a little bit shifty. He couldn't run on them. I think this is going to be as good a run defense as we've had here in a couple of years.
Well, we'll see on that. I think they did a nice job Sunday. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, Buffalo wants to run the ball. So I think, even with the inactives, if you notice, Michael Pierce was active. They wanted to have a backup for Brandon Williams. In fact, I thought it was interesting. Their front, they had Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce. So, anyone who saw him in the preseason, he's a guy who kind of is built similarly to Brandon Williams. So it's clear they wanted to be stout up front. I think it is worth noting Cordy Glenn, their left tackle, who is one of the better left tackles in the league, left the game with an ankle injury. They've had their issues. Santrell Henderson, their right tackle, suspended right now. Jordan Mills, kind of a weak link there at right tackle. So they weren't playing at full strength on their offensive line. But that said, the Ravens still did a nice job of, on that side of the ball, really controlling the line of scrimmage. They did a really good job there. So, I mean, you knew Buffalo would want to try to get their running game going, and it just never really happened for them other than a couple pops here and there in the second half. But, even with those, Shady McCoy had a 16-yard run to average 3.6 yards per carry. So it gives you a pretty good idea of what the Ravens were able to do there. So this run defense, I think, it wasn't a major problem last year, but it's certainly something they wanted to improve. And, I think Sunday was a good sign of that. But, one area of this team, even when their defense has not been quite as good over the last several years, they've still been able to stop the run. So, we'll see where it ranks with some of those other groups. But it was certainly good to see that, knowing the way that Buffalo just ran all over teams last year.
He is Luke Jones. You can reach him, Luke, at WNST.net, as well as Baltimore Luke on Twitter. I am Nestor Aparicio on Twitter. Together, we're at WNST during the games, after the games, before the games, always here for you. All right, let's get to the offensive side here, Luke, and let's start it with Flacco. And, we were all worried about him taking a hit and what it would look like. He got hit as much on Sunday as I remember him getting hit at any point, right? I mean, it was not like the offensive line was all that stout, and there were plenty of opportunities for him to be running out of the pocket and just trying to get rid of the football at various points. He got hit, but he got hit a ton.
Yeah, he got hit a lot. He got hit too much. I mean, this offensive line overall did not have a very good performance. I mean, it wasn't dreadful. I mean, they had their moments, but overall, not very impressive. He got sacked 4 times, got hit a couple other times. I thought it was interesting, not that Joe has ever been a guy who's going to leave the pocket frequently, but there were a couple times I thought maybe he would have taken off in the past. Maybe he was trying to stay in the pocket. Maybe he was trying to see if one of his receivers would shake free. But, overall, it was good to see him come out of it. I know John Harbaugh called him tougher than a $2 steak, which reminds me of old WWE announcer Jim Ross saying that, using that comment. But you'd rather not see your franchise quarterback hit as much as he was hit on Sunday. I think it's worth noting, and this is just reality, Ronnie Stanley and Alex Lewis, 2 rookies playing on the left side. First time in over 20 years that an NFL team has started 2 rookies at left tackle and left guard in week 1. So you had that. Jeremy Zuta clearly struggled. That's something I think is worth keeping an eye on, quite frankly, as that was not, fumbled snap, got beaten in pass protection, just did not look good overall. The offensive line left something to be desired. There's no doubt about that.
Well, they had the one series that was just really an aborted series, and there definitely were communication issues with wide receivers and tight ends and packages not knowing whether they were on the left side, the right side, Flacco having to line them up, burning a timeout, guys stopping short on routes and, balls sailing. They have some things to work out. I don't think, and I'm sure Joe talked about that in the postgame.
He did, and one thing he cited, this team had 225 yards of offense at halftime, yet they were only leading 10-7, and that's something that Flacco talked about. He said, we moved the ball well in the first half, but as you mentioned, some of the penalties, they had the turnover, just out of sync, weren't on the same page, and I think some of that was to be expected because Steve Smith hardly practiced this summer, and they had some other guys that were in and out of the lineup. Rashad Perriman practiced very little this summer. So, they didn't have all their parts. Dennis Pitta missed just about the entire summer. So, I think some of that was to be expected, but they do need to clean that up. And I think there was just an overwhelming sense of they could have been better in the first half in terms of scoring points. And then in the second half, they didn't move the ball very well. They got to, I think it was when they took over at the 11:38 mark of the fourth quarter, they had only had 3 first downs in the second half to that point, and 2 of those came on those 15-yard penalties from Buffalo. when the Ravens were backed up earlier in the half.
Penal generosity, as I called it on Twitter.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't – and I realize Buffalo held the ball for most of the third quarter, so I'm not saying the Ravens had a ton of opportunities in the second half to that point, but you got to be more productive than that, especially when you're playing at home. Pre-snap penalties playing in your home stadium, inexcusable. So, there were some things offensively definitely that you didn't like seeing. The running game was okay. Forsett had a couple big runs, had the big run late where got them into that, short yardage situation, and then Terrence West picks up the first to ice the game. But, overall, there wasn't a ton of running room. They resorted to the end-around play with Mike Wallace on that final drive, which worked out pretty well, but they didn't run block especially well. They had some penalties that you didn't like seeing. And as far as the passing game, I found it really interesting how much they played all of their personnel. I mean, they had 5 receivers active. All of them played, including Chris Moore. And Chris Moore was on the field quite a bit, actually. And, we saw the tight ends.
That's 10 guys caught balls. 10 guys.
Yeah.
Wallace, Pitta, Perryman, Juszczyk, Smith, Forsett, Aiken, Moore, West, and Gilmore. I mean, literally, there was nobody, that didn't catch a pass, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not sure. That might have been to their detriment at times on Sunday. I almost wonder if some of the issues that we did see as far as, just kind of being out of sync was they were trying to mix and match so many different guys. And look,
how do you put Pitta and Perryman out there in one package? They haven't been out there together that much, if at all, right?
Right. So, there's going to be a work in progress feel to it. There's no doubt about that. But, it's obvious this offense has to be better moving forward. There's no question about that. I mean, if they play like this offensively on the road most of the time, they're going to get beat. So, but I'll go back to the speed element again. Rashad Perriman makes the big reception, 35-yarder on the sideline.
And he's going to be smiling all week. I saw him in the locker room after the game. I mean, he's going to feel good all week, right? Wallace is going to feel good. Steve Smith got out there and did some stuff. Certainly Pitta. I mean, everybody leaves the game feeling good this week, right?
They do, but the point I was trying to make is I like seeing the speed. Between that and then clearly Mike Wallace on the play, Joe Flacco checked out of, runs the post route, single coverage on a safety. As he said after the game, he said, you put a safety on me, he's going to be dead every time. I thought that was very, very honest and probably true. So it was good to see that speed. Flacco said, he was asked about that first question he received at the end of the game or after the game, and basically said, we need to find ways to get the ball in the hands of Wallace and Perriman and Chris Moore a little bit more, those speed guys. Joe likes having speed. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you see what he did with Torrey Smith for 4 years here. Early in his career, he didn't have that speed, and it kind of limited what he was able to do as far as maximizing his strengths. But it was good to see that. You want to get the ball to Perriman more. I like that they used the end around to get the ball in Wallace's hands late there. Want to see more of them, and we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, Steve Smith had 5 catches, only for 19 yards, though. I mean, he's going to be more of an underneath guy. Aiken, we know, can be an effective underneath guy. But they didn't take a ton of shots, but, the 2 of the big shots they took were the plays to Perriman and Wallace, and that's what you like seeing. That's what was completely absent from this team a year ago. And, if this team's going to be, if this team's going to make noise in the AFC, I think it's going to be because they're utilizing that speed. They're utilizing that big arm of Joe Flacco that they just weren't able to do last year at all.
Last thing for you, and you will go back and paint through this again, I'm sure, all week as we get ready for Cleveland. Luke Jones is here. You can follow him at Baltimore Luke on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. Tucker got all the money, right? And, there was that week where, he was in the media saying stuff, and they were going to, figure it out or not figure it out. He made 3 kicks on Sunday. 2 of them were 50-yarders for the most part. The one comes off the board, and they wind up, re-kicking it 2 minutes later, which, all played into a 6-point victory. But Buffalo missed a kick, and, Tucker made 2 50-yarders. It really does come down to that, right? I mean, Tucker misses a kick, the other guy makes a kick. We're still playing, and it's 10-10, right?
Yeah, well, that's why they gave him the most guaranteed money that a kicker's ever received in NFL history.
And that's why I want to tip my cap to him, because this is the kind of game that you look at and say, I'm glad he's our kicker.
Sure. Sure. Well, they're paying him to make those kicks, but it was good to see him make, especially from 50 yards. I mean, that's something that last year was an issue for him. As much as everyone talks about how strong his leg is, and look, I've seen him make the 63, 65-yarders in practice. No one questions the leg strength, but accuracy from 50 and beyond was an issue for him last year, more so than what we've seen. And it wasn't just, if he's trying a 58-yard field goal at the end of the first half, fine. Most guys aren't going to make that. But he did. There were some kicks last year that he missed in that 50 to 53 range that I don't expect anyone to be perfect from there. But you're one of the best want to be one of the best kickers in the league. You got to make those. So it was good to see him hit that 50-yarder to put the Ravens on the board, give them the early lead late in the first quarter. And it certainly hits the, as you mentioned, the 45-yarder was taken off the board. Hits the 37-yarder. That's where the value for a guy like him really lies. Lots of kickers can make long kicks, but he has just been as automatic as it gets from inside, say, 45 yards. I mean, you barely even have to think about it, and that's just such a credit to him.
And we had Stover for a decade that was sort of kind of that way, right?
Yeah. And it's something that, you kind of, there's to a point, it's valuable. It's not the most valuable player on your team, but it's something that you don't realize how valuable it really is until you don't have it. And I think the Ravens have been fortunate, and that's why they paid Justin Tucker the money they paid him in July to keep him around for a few more years.
He is Luke Jones. You can find him, Luke, at WNST.net, as well as at Baltimore Luke on Twitter. You can find me anytime, anywhere, nasty, at WNST.net. I'm also in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day for anything here you miss. Appreciate all of you checking us out on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Morning newspaper reaches your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. Luke and I, as well as all week, we're going to go through all the games, review the offense, the defense, get everything ready. We are putting some live shows together and some swabbings for later in the month. I'll have some more details on that a little later on in the week as well. And yes, we have not forgotten that the Orioles also won and are headed to Boston for a bunch of games this week, so we'll be all over that as well, as I have my buckled up shirt on to go with my 1-0 Baltimore Ravens hat as we head out to Cleveland this week. You can find me anytime, anywhere on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, or anywhere our live video is streamed. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.